So
good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you're coming from. It's currently nighttime here, and about 4 p.m. in New York, and I'm guessing it's 4 p.m. as well in Brazil. Welcome to the participants, and we're waiting for the other ones to come on. My name is Huda Jesus. I am the General Manager of Preventive Consulting Group, and with my partner Leila Radi from IQCC, we are offering you this webinar to be able to discuss what has changed in the US market in terms of regulatory requirements. And I'll hand it over to Leila. Leila, you have...
Yes, good afternoon, Huda. Good afternoon to everybody who's joining us today. It is 4 p.m. in New York, and I'm glad to be here. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us to discuss the US food market and its requirement, as well as the Food Safety Modernization Act. So some of you already sell to the United States, and some of you would like to sell to the United States. And the Food Safety Modernization Act, really, which was signed in 2011, is an update, a long-awaited update of the regulation in terms of making it safer for the US consumer, giving a little more of responsibilities to importers, and helping manufacturers understand better what they're supposed to do to make sure that they actually offer a safe product to the consumers. So the main points that have come with the Food Modernization Act was first the food facility registration, and some of you might already be registered with FDA, others are in the process of doing that. This was a requirement to make sure that the FDA would have all the information about companies that are not only in the US, but overseas, that are manufacturing products for the US market. The US agent representation is only for foreign facilities, where the FDA has requested that companies that are overseas would choose a US agent to make sure that at any point FDA could contact them if they had a question regarding the safety of their product. The other thing, the biannual registration, is when FDA realized that every 2 years there was a need to update information, that some of the information they had was outdated actually. And by putting that in place, every 2 years, FDA makes sure that the information is updated in the system. And if a company does not actually go through that process, it will be erased from the food facility registration system and would have to reprocess the registration. The new thing is the hazard analysis and risk-based preventive control requirement. And this is one of the most important, which we have been working on with a lot of different companies, offering the training for companies to actually meet the standard. It is not only a simple thing to do at once, but a whole review of the system and the identification of all the risk-based during the process and identifying preventive control. But I will go a little bit deeper into this particular topic as we move through the slices. So please remember PCQI, which is Preventive Control Qualified Individual, because it will be the responsibility of one person on site to be actually trained and to be able to do this analysis. Later on, during the development and the implementation of the Food Modernization Act, FDA has requested that a unique identification number be included in the registration, and that can be a Dun number, which is the Dun and Bradstreet number that is assigned to each company that is created. This information is needed to make sure also that the companies that are registering themselves are legal, that they are not in trouble wherever they were registered, and that buyers and importers are able to gather data that is collected by an independent company such as, and reputable companies such as Duns and Bradstreet. Something that wasn't a requirement is now once you have a preventive control that is identified within your process, is the recall procedure. And this will help trace a product back to where it came from, and also make sure that once we realize there is a problem with a product, we will be able to find it and remove it from the market as soon as possible. The prior notice of imported food and samples is also new. Before that, you were able to pretty much send samples through the mail, whichever way you wanted. Today, it is not possible because of different reasons, because of also possible bioterrorism. A company has to register, or an individual has to register themselves and inform FDA that they intend to send a product into the United States, even if it is as a sample, or even if it is as a sample for a food show. So that FDA will know in advance and will be able to verify the information about the company that is sending those samples into the United States. There are some exemptions for certain product categories, not that they're not regulated, but that they have been already regulated by many different or other regulations, such as older HACCP regulated products, such as seafood, juice, and low acid canned food products. They are exempted from some of the parts of the new regulation, but not all of them. And lastly, we have this new requirement for the foreign suppliers verification program, which means that today the importer has become very responsible in terms of what they're bringing into the United States. So as a manufacturer, you might hear an importer asking you for information based on their FSVP, which is their foreign supplier verification program. And as a person is trained to be a PCQI, as I mentioned earlier, they will be working on preparing such documents that a supplier will require from them to meet the requirement of the FDA and prove that they have done what it is that they had to do to make sure that the product that they will be offering to the US consumers is a safe product. So if we looked at the new hazard analysis risk-based preventive control, HARPC. Now, many of you might be familiar with HACCP, which is Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. This is hazard analysis risk preventive control. So what has changed is the approach. We're not approaching now based on hazard, but we're approaching based on the risk of this hazard. So what a PCQI person, which is a person that will have been trained for preventive control identification, this person will learn how to identify, process preventive controls, allergen preventive control, sanitation chain preventive controls, and also any type of other controls that might be taken into consideration and could be included as a preventive control. So this is new and not new in the sense that if you have been already under HACCP regulation, your CCPs will still be there in the sense that they will just be the process preventive controls. The hazard analysis risk-based preventive control is really a way of adding more safety preventive controls in addition to CCPs. And the United States statistics, or the FDA statistics, have shown that in recent years, most of the problems within the food safety has been done due to allergen, and that's why we find that the Food Modernization Act has put a real accent on allergen preventive control. And recently, whether it was in Europe with the pizza or with the chocolate, we have seen that sanitation preventive controls and environment preventive control in terms of sanitations can be a very important issue if you have not done the right hazard analysis. Now, supply chain preventive control is also a new concept in the sense that the HACCP theory limited the hazard analysis to the process within the company and within the flow diagram. Today, this hazard analysis, which is risk-based preventive control, is going further and actually even further, but before that, into the supply chain and how important supply chain preventive controls can allow to eliminate a danger from entering a facility. So this whole important concept about the PCQI training is to allow a person not only to understand how to get to all the preventive controls, but how to put together a food safety plan, which is what today the buyers and the importers will be asking from a manufacturer as part of their food, their foreign supplier verification program. So part of the training is to teach the group of people that are within the training. And by the way, because it's an intensive training with a minimum of 20 hours, the groups are limited. We're not able to train 50 people at a time, but usually we'll go maximum to 20, and even 20 is a lot of people because there are interactions, there are groups, there are people working on developing a team, developing product description, developing product flow diagram and explanation, and presenting their example. The Chapter 8 is really the biggest chapter where everybody works together on developing a hazard and risk-based preventive control analysis. And then the student learn how to identify within the hazard analysis the preventive control and how to implement monitoring procedure, monitoring records, verification, all the things that are really today required from manufacturers. And that is what FDA will be looking for when they actually do a facility inspection. And they will also expect from the US importers to have put in place a program to verify that all this has happened. So there is also a chapter where we review good manufacturing practices, because good manufacturing practices can actually be elevated to preventive controls. And it is a nice way to refresh our memory, because this is all very important in a food safety plan. Food defense plan is also something new within the concept. It was put in place by some of the standards such as BRC or IFS, but now it isn't a recommendation based on a standard. It has become a regulated requirement to make sure that if you do have the right food safety plan, that this food safety plan will not be bothered by intentional contamination rather than accidental contamination. So as I was explaining, each US importer must have a foreign verification program, which will include reviewing the food safety plan of the manufacturer that they work with, and also they will need to conduct their own hazard analysis so that they're able to understand and choose what it is that they will be monitoring based on the product that they import, because since they might be importing different types of products, depending on the product, they might have different hazards, and they will have to make sure that they have understood that all these different types of hazard are being not only controlled, but monitored by their foreign or even local manufacturer. But in this case, we're talking more about the foreign manufacturer that send their products to the US. Now, I was mentioning that this FSDP requirement for import is a requirement, and a few situations actually have happened in terms of, let's say, food shows, where there is no importer because it's going to a show. So in that case, the US agent can act as the importer, but in this case, the US agent has to have him or herself done the verification program as an importer to make sure that the product that they're bringing into the US, even for show samples and not for resale to the US market, are safe products. US importers can choose what they will do for their, as part of their foreign supplier verification program, such as require lot or request lot by lot certificates, visits on sites, or send representative to do some type of inspection. And we will see that when there is a preventive control for supply chain, there is a requirement of visiting and auditing physically a supplier, and also checking and verifying the preventive control plans that the suppliers will have developed. So other possibilities, since not everybody might be able to travel or obtain all the information that I just described, there might be the possibility of sampling and testing shipments that are coming into the United States. The problem with that is that, if they're not, if they don't meet the requirement on entry, then of course they have to be either sent back or destroyed, which makes it more difficult, not only for the supplier, but for the importer. We keep in mind that for the suppliers that are already under HACCP regulation or low acid canned food regulation, some parts are exempt, but not all parts of the requirement of the new regulation are exempt. So it is important also that importers and suppliers are aware of what they're exempt from and what they're not exempt from. So food offered for import, which will be refused if it appears that the food safety verification program is not in place, will be waiting for a food verification program to be done. Or what will happen also is for specific food, you can have an importer blacklisted, which means the importer cannot bring in this particular food because he has not or her done her job. But another importer might be able to bring in the exact same product if they have done their foreign supplier verification program, which is very new in terms of entering into the United States. So it is not the manufacturer that is blacklisted, but it is the importer that is blacklisted for a product. Lastly, the importer can hire a third party to assist them in the verification process. And that can be whether they require or ask a third party to verify the food safety plan that their foreign manufacturers send them, or help them evaluate based on the product they bring into the United States, which products might bring hazard and how they should develop their food safety verification program. But very importantly, they will ask a manufacturer whether there is a preventive control qualified individual that has been trained, because the food safety food safety plan must be developed and signed off by a PCQI. Again, that's the person who will have been trained to make sure that the person has understood and has implemented the US requirements, especially in terms of understanding the concept of preventive control, whether there would be process preventive control, i.e. CCPs, if it's a HACCP regulated product, and preventive control for allergen, which are the major concerns today in the United States, whether it is within the product or on the labels. Sanitation preventive control, and we don't mean by that the regular cleaning of a facility, but the area where maybe a ready-to-eat product will be assembled, or the last part within a facility where contamination can happen again, especially again if it's a ready-to-eat product. And the very important supplier, the supply chain preventive control, which today is a very important concept, where once the danger will be within a facility and the manufacturer is not the one that is actually bringing this product to safety, then the requirements are within the supply chain, and there has to be preventive control put in place. So FDA will require that people are trained, but not only trained on any type of PCQI curriculum. They have developed their own curriculum. They have together worked with the Food Safety Preventive Control Alliance, FSPCA, and they have put together the curriculum that is accepted by FDA, and they are the ones who actually deliver the certificates, even if they train instructors. And you have to be an instructor actually to teach this course. You can't just have taken a course and then teach. You have to be an instructor, and then the certificate will be actually delivered by FSPCA together with FDA. So in 30 minutes, I tried to put together as much information as possible. And the goal of this presentation was to give you a better understanding of the main point of the Food Safety Modernization Act, what is required from manufacturing facilities, in particular foreign manufacturers, and the trainings they must make sure they give to usually their employee, quality assurance people, production people, anybody who is involved with the manufacturing, and why on this side of the ocean, the importers will be asking for all this information, and also asks for all the documents that the quality team will need to develop and make sure are available. Huda, thank you. Thanks to all of you, and back to you.
Thank you, Leila. I'm going